self-discovery race that the discovery of self is but a show away. With over 1,800 shows and growing, we bring you those liberating stories that help you on your own life's journey from every single topic you can think of. The only common denominator is authenticity and living in your meaningful purpose. Come and read our new ebook, plus see our discovery store and what wonderful tools we have for you. Do enjoy our shows and don't forget to share. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Positive Vibrations Roundtable. I am your host, Sarah Troy, and my guests today are Christina Hill and Maureen Germain. Both have been on the air with us here today, and other days, and many shows, and obviously I had to have them back again because they're so awesome, and they contribute so much to you in the well-being, in the spiritual embracement, in the dimensional embracement of which we're going to do today. And they are very, very much people that live by what they speak. So you're going to have a very divine experience here today. And so relax, get yourself ready to receive, because we're going to be talking about dimensional living. What does it really mean? How do we live in the different dimensions? How do we grow? Turn up our frequency, embrace that beautiful divine energy, open up in order to receive. And both of them are beautiful experts in this field, and you're in for a ride, you're in for a wonderful experience. So get yourself seated, you're out for a beautiful energetic ride into the dimensional living. So Maureen Germain is actually a dimensional coach. She's also does so many other things, sacred geometry, in the opening of your heart, advanced Makerba teachings, the activation of your higher self, the inner guru, so many things that she does. And when you hear her, the conviction of what she does just flows. It just literally flows like a river, and that information just flows off her. So you're in for a treat to learn a lot from her today. Christina has a beautiful entity that comes to speak with her, Athella, who is an entity that comes through her and speaks literally in Christina's voice and gives us messages from the divine, from the other side of what we need to know in order to raise that vibration and embrace that dimensional walk. And she says such great wisdom with us. Another wonderful heart and soul that you're just going to flow like liquid here. And so you're in for a treat. So first and foremost, let's bring Maureen on, where she's going to tell you a little bit about herself, and then we will bring Christina on. So welcome to the show, ladies. And Maureen, how about telling us a little bit about what you do more articulately than I can?
All right. So I'm Maureen St Germain, and I have been teaching esoteric materials since 1994. I have become a conscious channel from Source, and because of that, everything I teach is literally channeled. The information that I tend to bring forward is the practical application of how you can understand what's happening, how you can apply this to future experiences, and how to understand what is really happening in the reality. My background is that I came from the corporate world. I was in the corporate world for close to 30 years and began teaching the spiritual work as I was called. I actually went to the altar and said, if I'm supposed to do this full time, then I'm willing. And 4 weeks later, I had a pink slip, a check, and I was on my way. I initially began teaching the original Merkaba, which is the guided meditation that activates the Merkaba field around the body. I no longer teach that, but I do have a DVD so people can still learn it. And then in the ensuing years, what happened is that work is so evolved that it literally allows you to be more anchored in your fifth dimensional self, your ascended master self. And so that's how I then started to do this work. And then a few years later, I was given access to a dimension that had been closed to humanity for eons. And I also was given a permanent guide. And in that process, I began working in the Akashic Records. And I now teach people how to open up their own Akashic Records and how to open up the records for others. And so this book that I'm currently releasing in a few weeks, Waking Up in 5D, is all about the dimensional shift that we are embracing and the fact that the rules haven't changed. The game has changed. So it's a whole different paradigm for people.
One we're going to get into today for sure. And Christina, would you please introduce yourself and tell us about you and Athella?
Thank you so much. What a beautiful, detailed flowering of consciousness that Maureen has shared. Thank you so much. I'm familiar with a lot of these things that you have mentioned. My road, though, coming from a background of hypnosis, so I'm formerly hypnotherapist, now into coaching, but I'm really full-time channeler now. So that's really the best way that I could lead into my introduction, is that Athella came to me, approaching me while I was in a deep past life regression. And, since I was a kid, though, with psychic gifts and kind of leading that double life, and really shirking my gifts, really hiding my gifts. And so she had come to me at a time, just a very pivotal point in my life, and it said, that's it. You're going to now, we're going to open, you're going to take the knowledge, wisdom, information that I'm going to give you. You're going to build a company, and we're going to heal. So Athella's made it very clear in coming through me that her work is designed not to entertain, not for entertainment, not for fortune telling, but for healing. And so the entertainment points that she's brought up is really, really an important thing that she's wanted me to highlight here, is that its only purpose is really to get people to move into their fifth dimensional awareness, their being, their light bodies, and to wake up. And once they are awakened, that disorientation sometimes that occurs, to allow oneself to connect with their guides, so that it's a little bit more stabilizing for people. It's a little bit more normalizing for people, more comfortable. So she's here also to make this more mainstream, more like, okay, this is just the way things work. This is not smoke and mirrors and hocus pocus, and to make sure that people feel comfortable and that they can ask questions of her. And so she's really kind of back to the basics. The information she provides is very basic. She wanted it so that even a child could approach her material and say, okay, I know what this is. One of her biggest projects that she's completed thus far, which is channeled through me, is called the Rainbow Trolley series. It's something really simple. It's fun. It's colorful. It's a vehicular psychic vehicle, really. It's a vehicle you can hop onto, and it's a visualization. It's a series of meditations that you do with Athella, with an accompanying journal. You take a ride on the trolley, and you learn about yourself. You learn about this fifth dimension, what it feels like, in these colors and through the eyes, through the body, how you can really step into your co-creator, your higher self, all of these things that we keep hearing about, implementing it into real, practical, everyday living. So it's called the Rainbow Trolley series for a reason. It's something of one of the tools you can put in your toolkit, utilizing it in everyday life for even small stuff. So it's available on our website, athella.org. That's really my introduction. I always point it to Athella, though, because she's really the one who's helped me arrive at this point. So meeting Maureen and Sarah, and thank you so much for having me. But I like to point it to Athella because she's really the CEO of my company, and I take my cues from her.
She's the guide. But of course, if the vessel wasn't ready and if the vessel wasn't pure, the entry wouldn't be there. So, both of you are now channelers in your own, divine right. But had you not been ready, open, or of purity, they wouldn't have come to you. So, when you're chosen, it's never a small feat. It's a big responsibility, obviously, but at the same time, too, it's a real gift, to be chosen to do this work. And each one of you have been chosen in a different way. And, before we hit on the dimensionals, let's talk about channeling. because people kind of don't quite get it. They think it's rather like Whoopi Goldberg and the ghost, about, entity jumps in. And in a sense, it is a kind of an entity just kind of comes in and takes you over, but you don't lose yourself. It's not person is coming and taking over and kicking you out. It's just they're channeling through you information and that you yourself maybe cannot access. The human mind or the human body can't access. So let's talk a little bit how channeling works. And so, Maureen, I'll go back to you first on this one. Maureen? Did we lose her?
My movement to this category came because I developed a protocol for an everyday person to connect with their higher self. And the protocol is very straightforward and very simple. And you spend 6 weeks doing what I will call practice or playing with this work without trying to make it the decision maker of important stuff. And in the process, you develop a rapport with your higher self to the point that you can start to ask your higher self a question that is important after the 6 weeks practice period, and you actually get accurate information. So it takes people from a place of, I will call it trusting to knowing. We trust that our friend will meet us for lunch, but we don't know for sure. Maybe they'll get in a car accident, maybe they'll get hung up at the office, but we know the sun is going to come up. So when we move from trusting our intuition or our guidance to knowing, that opens up the portal to the divine connection. And then my connection to source came right through that. So I did not work through being a channel to be a channel. I became a channel as a outcome of this spiritual work to connect with the divine self. And that's the important thing, because when anybody can learn to connect with their higher self, anyone can learn to get 100% accuracy and to be able to rely on it. I actually had an experience where I was driving a car down an interstate late at night and a big truck passed me, and it was a tractor trailer kind of thing with a big load, and I was told by my guidance, by my higher self, to get into what's called the slipstream or the airfoil of that truck. And I questioned that because, after all, that's not considered very nice, and it uses more gas for the trucker and saves me gas. So it's not a cool thing to do. And I asked again, is this my higher self telling me to do this, get behind this truck this way? And I was told yes. And so I said, really? Yes, do it now. So I did. Then we were coming up on an interchange, and I wondered what was going to happen. And the truck was taking the same change of freeway that I was. So now we're on this curvy road, again, moving very fast, 60, 70 miles an hour, towards the interstate that we were moving to. And suddenly he's on the berm. And I ask again, am I supposed to say with him, yes, move over now? And I did, and there was another car coming the wrong way on that curvy road that I would have collided with.
Right.
Now, when we came out of that interchange, I asked again, do I need to stay with this guy? No, you're fine. Now, it takes the ability to know your higher self so that you can ask this question. So one of the ways that a person could become a direct channel of any ascended master or their own higher self or source is to always validate, is this being or energy of 100% God light? Because if it's not, then, you don't want to have anything to do with it. And one of my students, who's also a channel herself, was telling a story to me how in her dream time this being came to her and said, he had some good information for her about anti-aging. And she said, he said, do you want it? And she said, I want to know first if you're of the light. And he said, pretty much. And she said, are you 100% of the light? Mm-hmm. And he said, no. And she said, then I don't want to know. And he said, don't you want to know? It'll, keep you young. And she said, get lost. I'm not interested. And being came back and said, are you sure you don't want to know about anti-aging? Right? I mean, everybody wants to know about anti-aging, especially when you're over 60. And again, she said, I am not interested. If you're not 100% God light, you need to leave now. And so that's, this business of channeling is very powerful and very useful. And everyone ought to be able to get to 100% accuracy. And even then, you still check in and ask, are you of the light? And I can see Christina's nodding. And so I want to get off to you.
Maureen, I am not only nodding, sorry, I'm tongue-tied now because there's so much coming out. But I'm also bowing because I really believe, what you have pointed to here is so critical, yet it can often be overlooked when you get to an advancement.
Right, because you're so excited.
Right, there's a lot
somebody came to me.
Yeah, I know, and it could be someone different. Just the other show that we did with Sarah, there was one of Sarah's guides. I became very excited, found myself very excited. But then but even as a primer, always checking in. So there's that validation, confirmation. So I think this is a great teaching point, even for beginners. So, asking it, are you of 100% pure light, of the mover and maker of all that is that where this is coming from? It only takes a second to do that, by the way. And then the body cues. So listening to what the body says, the body in its great wisdom will give us those resounding yes, or the contraction of or something there that's not quite right. And I think following those cues and then re-asking it, if you're unsure, to go back and re-ask it. I love what your friend did, is just to reconfirm, it's okay to go back and ask again. Because you do want to make sure that what you're working with is absolutely pure, and that there's a resounding yes in the body.
There's often, a prayer that you can ask, okay, so go ahead and recite the 23rd Psalm with me, or some other, devotional prayer that that would be calling in authentic God energy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And there's a wanting energy too that I think is darker. And if you're a colors person, think about the color spectrum as you're connecting with these beings. And if you sense something that is on a darker scale, you can feel that kind of, well, don't you want to be young? Mm-hmm. There's a color. Don't you want to? And it's a color there that and it's very ego based and repetitive. Here we go with the repetitive sounds. You may have visits several times by this entity, this being, until you finally put a stomp at it and say no, absolutely no. So I love that example. That's perfect. And it's funny because I don't often hear people go through this process out loud. So speaking it out loud, it helps with remembering, okay, each time I need to go through this process. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
Well, there's two things I want to hit on here. Is the one making sense, the other one ego, because our heads will get in the way. And what this doesn't make any sense. Tell me what you mean. And sometimes you just have to go with the flow. You just had to stay in the flow of that truck, and all will be revealed. But as human beings, we're so, tell me now. I want to know now. I'm not going to do it until I understand now. And that's where that leap of faith has to come out. If it feels right, follow. It will be revealed. But also our egos get in the way. And that ego is like, well, I'm not going to listen to, this entity. Who do you think you are? I know better. And it's a human condition ego. And it's something that I think sometimes in this need, fear-based, because it's, you don't trust enough your own inner message. You don't trust enough this message that's coming to you. And it's that fear that's kind of then driving that ego to drive it out. How do we address that ego and that need to make sense instead of just tapping in and going with the flow? I'll start with you, Christina, this time.
Yes, sure. We're doing it right now. So there's an plumb line. It's just first connecting and feeling what it feels like to be in the flow. The fifth dimensional living, the high vibrational living, it's the recognition of that. That's what Athella says, recognizing what that feels like, connecting to that every day. just like brushing your teeth every day. So you do something repetitively enough, you understand what it feels like to be in that upright position of flow. You have that flow. And then whenever you step off of that, you're going to find ego is a different feeling, a very definitive feeling. So I guide people in my coaching practice and in sessions. Athella will just guide people back to this flow feeling, this felt body awareness. And I think my belief and my understanding of this process is that through practice, through a daily, simple, not difficult, not going to a monastery, although that's fine if you want to go to a monastery, but it doesn't have to be difficult to sit in meditation for 5 minutes every day and familiarize yourself with what flow feels like. And then I think it is a lot easier to recognize when the thinking mind, when ego, and when fear shadow creeps up and shows up and appears or arises in your experience.
Right. And Maureen, what would you say to that?
I actually developed a protocol where there are 7 things that you pay attention to, and you start with what Christina has referred to, or perhaps I should say Athella has referred to, that has to do with a signal. So you literally go into a meditation and you ask higher self, give me my signal for yes. Give me my signal for no. Give me my signal for neutral. Yeah. And your higher self will give you that signal. You know, even when I do it with people who aren't, like, say, of this crowd, they can still get a symbol or signal. And it's a very rare person that doesn't get one. It's more likely that they get one and then they're saying, oh, that doesn't count. You know, like the woman who has an itchy ear and she dismisses that and tells her mind to quiet down, and then her toe itches and she again reminds her body, just settle down. And then her whole body starts to itch and she says, all right, I'll take the itchy ear. That itchy ear is your yes signal. And so then what you do for 6 weeks is you take a practice and you eliminate all other forms of divination. So you set aside your pendulum, you set aside the muscle testing, and you set aside the parts, all that. You just set it aside. And for 6 weeks you're on a practice, and the practice includes only asking your higher self yes/no questions, so that there's no possibility that you're going to wonder what was really meant. And you're only asking about unimportant things. If it's important, you're not allowed to ask. So if you feel like having a candy bar or a smoke or whatever it is you're interested in the moment, don't ask your higher self if you already decided you really want it. But if you are willing to be playful and ask your higher self, what happens is over time, the higher self will be giving you such accurate information. Now, how does the ego make decisions? The ego makes decisions by examining the past and using that as a predictor of the future. So when we decide something, it's usually based on whatever our research is and then our experience in the past. So what this does for 6 weeks when you're practicing with your higher self, you're asking your higher self about stuff you don't care about. The food you're going to eat, the restaurant you might go to, the route you might take to work, the clothes you might wear. In fact, one lady came to class one day after I had taught this principle and asked everyone to begin practicing. And you're supposed to ask 30 or 40 unimportant questions a day. So it's a pretty big deal. And, you know, sometimes when women come in a room, the other women notice and then they kind of look them over and, you know, kind of take it in, what her look is or what her appearance is. And this woman who was walking in the room noticed someone else noticing her, and she looked at her and she said, don't even ask. My higher self dressed me today. Because she was wearing this very strange combination of gold and jewelry. And the idea is that we have to be willing to be playful.
Yes.
And it is in that playful way that we actually get such clarity about the higher self that we don't have to doubt it. Mm-hmm. So that at the end of that 6 weeks, 2 things happen. The first thing that happened is we've actually improved the connection between ourself and our divine self, and we've opened that door that's a one-way door, and we've kind of propped it open. And the second thing that happens is our ego that has been standing back, not caring about the things we've asked about, but noticing that when the higher self picked the restaurant, a friend that we've been looking for a couple of weeks shows up. Mm-hmm. we order this meal and it turns out to be the best meal that anybody in our group orders. Or you wear the dark shirt and that's the day you spill ketchup on yourself. So these kind of things start to add up. And now you have a history of your own awareness that your higher self has proven that you're going to get the best decision. So now there's no competition because the ego can see clearly in reference to the higher self that the higher self has got the goods. The higher self has got the answer. It's kind of like, if I win at the races 3 or 4 times and I say to you, you want to go with me next time, your answer is going to be yes. And then when you bet, you're going to bet whatever I bet. And the idea is that the higher self will teach us that it does have the answer. And it's very powerful, especially when we ask our higher self about something that, we kind of want to do, but we're not that attached. So we ask the higher self, should I do this? No. And you don't do it. And then another time when you're not that enthused about doing it, let's say you ask, should I go to this party? You're tired. You really don't feel like going. And your higher self says, yes, you need to go. So, you get dolled up and you go and you meet somebody that you needed to meet. Yeah. And so what starts to happen is you begin to realize that even when you don't feel like it at the personality level, even if you don't feel like it at the ego level, that the higher self has got the true answer that's in your highest and best good in this moment. As a matter of fact, I'm married to my husband for over 5 years, and we've been together 7 years, and I would not have gone out with him if it hadn't been for my higher self saying, aren't you going to check in? When I said, that's a really nice invitation, but I don't know. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with my husband. He was simply geographically undesirable. And so I didn't want to be with somebody who was based on the West Coast because I like the East Coast.
What did you end up, middle?
Oh, I hoped in 2 places. And honestly, that's another thing. I asked my higher self, at some point, when this relationship started to, take off, I remember asking my higher self, so what do I do with this guy? I'm enjoying his company. He's enjoying mine. We're feeling good about each other. But what do I do about it? Because I was traveling quite a bit, and so was he. That was another thing that happened. We actually landed in the same cities, unexpectedly, him for his business, me for my workshops, and we would be there at the same time, and that was pretty profound. So when I asked in meditation, all right, what do I do about this guy? I was told, build a bridge. That had not occurred to me. And, when you first start out, especially if you walk away from a corporate job, you're making 6 figures over here and you're making 2 figures over there. And, you're saying, okay, can I do this? And the answer is, well, I guess I'll give it a shot. And so you follow your heart, but then you're, looking at your bank account. So initially, I was living in a space that I absolutely loved, and I had room for visitors, and it was in Manhattan, and I had a courtyard that I had full access to. Why would I want to give that up? And on his side, he'd say, yeah, but you wouldn't have to pay any rent. And my response was, well, I'm managing just fine by myself. And so the idea of letting go of my space in New York and then moving to the West Coast wasn't really very appealing to me. And when I asked, the higher self told me I should have both. And every time we come up for a lease or every time we come up for a move, I check in. Higher self, am I to still keep this place? Because one of the things that I know is that our guidance is real time. So that when we get an answer, it's about right now. And 2 weeks from now, 2 years from now, that can change. And so choosing to always check in, is it in my highest and best good to even ask this question? Is it in my highest and best good to do X, Y, Z? Literally keeps us in real time. So I don't presume just because I was told to build a bridge that I would keep that apartment in New York forever. But for the time being, I do. And so, spiritual teachers who are in New York get to stay at my place as a gift because I feel the Spirit has given me a gift.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And before you reply there, Christina, is understanding what the higher self is. Because we keep talking about the higher self and people think it's detached from you. No, that it's just kind of your divine essence that is connected, is your partnership, is your oneness of self. And then when you do tap into it and you do have that open dialogue, it means you're never traveling alone. And it reminds me of a book and a movie, The Golden Compass. And the one thing that really hit me hard on that movie is when their souls were worn on the outside. And as children, there'd be different animals, and when they reached puberty, it would become the animal that represents who their divine self is on the inside. And I was always so envious that we couldn't have our, divine selves, our souls, our spirit there as a companion to talk to and travel with. What we are talking about here today is, yes, you can. You can talk to your higher divine self. You can have that partnership. You can turn to them. You don't have to be alone. You are never alone. It's just a question of tuning in. Change your channel and you'll get that divine guidance, but you'll also get that feeling that you are never, ever alone. So, Christina, I'm sorry, had to put that one in.
That's right. No, and I'm drinking this up. Maureen, I so appreciate the very personal, detailed examples of how our higher self and our guides, they work in real time. And there's this changing presence of life flow. So it requires that we check in. I love this checking in, that phrase, checking in. And you're coming from corporate world. So companies, corporations, this is what they do. They come into meetings all day long. Yeah. Why not with your guides, or why not with higher self? You can. Yes. Yes, we can. And yes, you can have it all. I love this reply from higher self and higher source is you can have both.
Why does it have to be one or the other? Yeah.
That's right. It's not going to occur to us. Right. I have Athella often will say, you can't get the answer from your ego mind. Mm-hmm. You're not going to have the solution, but we have solution. Spirit has solution, or you could call it higher self. Now, higher self being, I liken that to an adult maybe holding on to a balloon and walking down the park. You've got higher self floating right along with you, although it's higher up, right? It's elevated up. And we do have access to this. Everyone has the plumbing, the equipment, and the toolkit to connect to higher self. Maureen has this amazing, which Maureen, I need to check this out, this 6 weeks course. I think that's great because it's you're testing it, you're playing with it for 6 weeks rather than going and, okay, I'm going to stake my entire claim on higher self right now. You're actually playing with these tools and you're implementing them as a means of practice to get yourself developed, to get yourself there.
That repetitive cycle one needs to have before you get into the pattern. Yeah.
That's right. So it's like learning to ride the bicycle. So we need some practice before we go out and we stake our claim on something huge, but we learn to live in conjunction with higher self or with our guides. So really I find that all of these elements, we're here talking today on the show about fifth dimensional living. This is living in fifth dimension. All of these things. So if listeners are tuned into this now and they feel really connected to all this information, this is speaking to them, calling to them, I mean, jump on in. And there is no better time than now. Our guides, our higher self, we do work in the now, in real time. So it's great to check in at every moment. You could be in the grocery store. It could be for something small. I agree with Maureen, starting with small things, to both manifest and to ask questions about. That would be a key to start out. And then for me, with my coaching clients and with clients who come to Athella, who just work on going with Athella, she'll often say to them, how is your self-care going? How is your daily self-care going? Your 5-minute, or for some people who are extremely analytical, I work with people who are engineers, doctors, people who just can't stop thinking, not even for a second. We'll work with 1 minute of non-thinking, just 1 minute of meditation that is no thoughts, and work your way into that. She'll often tell people start with 5 minutes a day, 8 minutes a day of meditation. And that's really something, is your self-care. The foundation for self-care begins, in my opinion, with meditation and with the non-thinking, entering the non-thinking realm. So the other parts, which we've done shows on these before, what goes into the body, consumption, and what is holding you back from being able to access higher self. And Maureen, I'm sure you have, even before the show started, you have some wonderful feedback about our bodies, what we can do to support our mind body, because it's not just one thing. Our self-care routine, it's not just one thing. It needs to be many, many things to help us connect to our higher self on a regular, continual basis, every day.
Well,
I agree.
The
totally
higher
agree.
self has to be, if your higher self is constantly having to work on a body that's in distress, either emotionally or physically, it's not taking you to the levels or your purpose that you need to be at. It's just trying to kind of rescue you, to get through the day. And so if we took care of our vessel and eat vibrationally, rest, meditate, find that inner peace, we're now able to have that partnership with our higher selves and step into our meaningful purpose so much more productively, because we have to understand it is a partnership. So Maureen, you were about to say?
Yes, one of the things that you emphasize is how, the higher self is an aspect of ourselves. And I like to use the corporate terms because people understand us. And if you're the CEO of your body, and you are, then your higher self is the treasurer. Now, the treasurer has information, but the treasurer is not the boss. So when you call the treasurer and say, I'm meeting with a banker and I'm wanting to, pay off that balloon payment a week early, can we do that? The treasurer says yes. Did the treasurer give you permission? No. The treasurer gave you information. Yeah. And the treasurer happens to have more information than you do, but you are still the boss of you. And that's something that people misunderstand. They think that the higher self, because we use the word higher, that it's better than them or it's removed from them. And you made a point of saying, no, it's very close, and all we have to do is invite it in, and it's so true. And once you think about your higher self as being part of your team, it changes.
Yeah.
So it isn't the boss of you. It isn't better than you. It simply has access to God and all the other information you care about that you don't have access to. So why not use your higher self as a resource?
It's your guru.
That's right.
It's your own personal little guru.
Your guru. Yeah. Actually, that's what I added to one of the book titles is, accessing your inner guru. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, I'm always talking about the knowingness. You talked about how do you know if what's been said to you is true or not. And for me, it always goes back to that knowingness. And for me, it's in the gut. Now, that's where I believe the divine information comes in for me, then resonates with the heart in understanding and passion. It goes to the spirit into action, whether it's, verbal or physical, and the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And I think half the time we don't get the message, or we don't trust the message, because as you're talking about that dialogue, that constant chatter. Yes, but what? Yeah, but what if? But how can you believe it? Blah, 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 going on, which is kind of like the human condition. But if we just took that breath and just trusted that gut to the heart, to the spirit, to the mind, that truth that's there, right now, in this moment, is the only truth that you need to have. That's it. But for people, the chatter, how do they still the chatter? Some can do it by that meditation and switching off. For me, it's rediverting. Listening to the trees, listening to the birds, listening to the music, listening to something else, getting out of my own head, and stepping into that chatterer that's around me. But how do people quieten that voice so they can actually listen to that channel, taking them into that knowingness? Maureen?
One of the things I do is I actually tell people, do your due diligence. Do the research. Find out, let's say you're looking at an apartment. You look at what the rent is. You look at the neighborhood. You ask all the questions you would normally ask. Then you set it aside. And then you ask your higher self. And what's very powerful is your higher self might tell you something that you think is counterintuitive. But since you've already done all the research, the chatter doesn't need to be present. Right. See, it's when you resist the chatter that it gets louder. Just like a child, when a child hurts their finger, if they come running to you crying, look at my finger, and you say, oh, it's nothing, go back outside and play. You know what happens. They escalate. And the same is with our fears and our belief systems. They escalate if we dismiss them. So better to take the time and look at all those things and give yourself and your personality and all of that the opportunity to voice, to be heard, to be respected. And then you lay that all out in front of you and you say, okay, I got it. And then you set it aside. It's just like, I never expected to be told to build a bridge. I never expected that when my higher self said that this was the person I was to be with, that I wouldn't have to give up my ability to be in New York. What a concept.
Yeah.
So sometimes your higher self has a solution that you have not thought of. And I'd like to share one example. When I was very much younger than I am right now, and my higher self was a tool for me. I'm so sorry, I don't know what's going on here.
The higher self message coming through.
I was just going to say that.
I got this intercom that's, somebody must be bumping it or something. Anyway, I can't seem to turn it off. There we go. All right. In any event, I was a young mother and my children wanted to do something and I didn't know what to do. My son had an opportunity to go to a college and his college was a full scholarship, and he was going to be 100 students were going to go to this event, and out of this event, 10 students would be picked for a full ride scholarship. And I was going to be the one having to pay for school, so I figured this was important. At the same time, there was a very important training that I needed to go to, that I wanted to go to, and I had already made it clear in my mind that I would go to if I could. So I'm now faced with this dilemma. What do I do? Because if I'm off taking him on this college adventure, then I can't attend this workshop. So the workshop leader says to me, well, tell your ex-husband he should take the children for that weekend and he can take your son to that college. And I said, it's not that simple. It's an 800-mile drive. There's no reason for him to take the older one and then haul the little kids in the car for 8 hours. That's just crazy. And I don't feel comfortable even asking him to do that. So I took it to the altar and I asked my higher self what I should do. And my higher self said, this is not your decision, Maureen. This is your son's decision. Now my son had skipped first grade and he was 16 years old with this opportunity. So I hadn't really thought about him making that decision. So and then my higher self said, and there are 3 choices, not 2. It isn't a matter of him going with you or him going with his dad. There's one other choice. So as I laid out the 3 choices to him, I didn't even finish the 3rd choice, which was you could go by yourself and fly. Before he said, well, that's easy. I'm going by myself then. And it blew me away because as a mother, I would never have sent my child off to such an important event without being there for him. And now my higher self is not only telling me that it's not my choice, it's his, so I'm completely guilt-free. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yes, yes. I have to say, Maureen, I really enjoy looking at your inflections as you're sharing these personal stories because there's a lot of light that you can see passing through your body, and you just funneled that. You created a funnel for that information and for your child to make the choice. So it was like, okay, here you go. And springboarding off of that, I'll just say it's great that we can use our higher self for any practical application. And it just requires sitting with yourself, coming to, as you call it, Maureen, coming to the altar. Whatever ritual that looks like for you, it's just remembering to do that in those moments rather than passing it up and trying to, quote unquote, figure it out for yourself, which I think a lot of us fall into that as we get busy because there's a lot of chaotic, busy, thinking, as you call it, Sarah. I love that dialogue you've got on both sides here, going on. Most people have that nonstop continuously throughout the day. We have our cell phones. We have all these distractions. So it really does mean that you have to create that space where you are taking time out of your busy day to stop and ask. And you must ask it. So Maureen, I'm curious, is your process done? Do you do this out loud? Is it something where you speak it aloud? I know Athella often will tell people, say it aloud, ask for what you want, put it on the platter of sorts, and lift it, and literally lift up your eyebrows, lift up your eyelashes, and ask it aloud, and do it with some oomph.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Well, the process is really a set of protocols. So, you follow the idea that you don't ask predictive questions. You don't ask about what someone else is going to do. Your practice period is all about, is it in my highest and best good to do this? Yeah. And I like to say you ask the last question. You don't ask the second last question. And the last question is, do I need to carry an umbrella? The second last question, is it going to rain? Because what happens is we often want to collect data so that we can make a decision. And if we understand that we can collect all the data we want, but then we turn and ask the higher self the last question, do I need to carry an umbrella? And the most amazing thing is, I'm personally not a big umbrella person, but on a cloudy day, I'll carry an umbrella in the city. And one time I asked if I was to carry an umbrella, and I was told yes. Okay, I've got two umbrellas, the collapsible one or the cane one. No, take the cane one. I never opened that umbrella, but I did use it to keep me from tripping at one point in the day.
Yes.
And that's kind of, having just done a great trip with that umbrella.
You don't know. And, it's kind of cool because it could rain all day, but whenever you're outside, it stops.
Yes. Exactly. And then people say it was a waste of time taking it. No, it wasn't. It was a preventative.
Yes. One of the techniques that I use a lot too in working with people who come from all different backgrounds all over the world is to take it outside, literally, to literally go outside and find yourself moving the body joyfully is what Athella calls it. So that shelving it technique where you're asking it, you know what you've asked, and then you want to just put it on a shelf for a while. I think one of the great techniques is going outside in nature and then moving your body joyfully, going for a hike, going for a swim, even a brisk walk, and taking your mind energy outside, taking it out, and then putting that request on the platter and leaving it there, or lifting it up to angels, however you want to word that or phrase that. But it's a great way to get outside of your mind. You were asking earlier, Sarah, about, stopping the mind chatter. I think, I don't call this exercise. It's movement of the body that you enjoy, which I realize is a lot longer and long-winded than just saying exercise. But I think we're moving into the fifth dimension. So it requires new language, upgrading the language, which is more honestly, it's moving your body. You're with your body. Stay with your body as you're walking. Feel your feet. And touch some leaves and be, feel that oxygen. That's right. Yeah, you could, I love the playfulness and the dance and the joy. It's not just poetry, it's actually real. People do this in other countries. I think we're implementing it more in the western part of the world where we go outside and we enjoy nature. And that takes us out of our thinking and it allows spirit to work, or all that is providing solution for us, and it's not coming from thinking mind then. Well, so that's an excellent technique too.
We are kind of 4 key personality traits. There's the analytical, there's the action-based person, there's the total spiritual type person, and then there's the practical and orderly type person. And you can't go against the grain of your personality, but that doesn't mean that you can't tap into your higher self. If you are an orderly person and you like things neat and tidy, then that is who you are. Don't try and go against the grain. Going with the flow of your higher self does not mean that you're losing any sense of control. It means that you're gaining it. If you'll find people that are action-based people are very intuitive. They got the gut instinct. I like that. Let's do it. Let's go with it. One of the things they've got to do is learn to slow down, ask the higher self, is this the right action to do right now? Just because you can, should you? And I find for them a little harder to be still enough, long enough, in order to kind of ask that question. But they're very guttural, very instinctual type people. Of course, the very spiritual people are inclined to be on the higher plane and have a disconnect with the body. And, very often suffers from illness because of it, because of that disconnect. And then you've got the person that's just the scientist, just prove it to me. Well, yeah, okay, the spiritual thing, but where's the proof? Well, we're now seeing with scientists, with the quantum physics and the quantum energy, where they're beginning to understand that what a state of being that we're living in is actually measurable. And they're understanding the measurement of that energy and the frequency and how it's changing the miraculous structure of the body and everything around it. So the world is certainly waking up, and I think right now everybody's on, except for those of us that are on that fifth dimension, most people are on that fourth dimension. They're on that bridge crossing over, and they're just needing that guidance. They're needing, I'm ready, I'm willing, I'm able, and I need to know how. How do I do it? I think a lot of people are truly and utterly seeking that. So both of you must be seeing in your practices an insertion of people that desiring to connect with themselves.
Yes.
You want to go first?
Thank you. Go right ahead, Maureen.
I saw you hesitate. If you have something you want to say, I will tell you that I believe fourth dimension is that bridge, as you have described it.
Yes.
And I also tell people fourth dimension is like Grand Central Station. You would never go there to spend the night. Right. You go to fourth to get somewhere else. So people are vacillating between third and fifth. And I think that's the first big aha, to think that you could actually be fifth dimensional in one moment and then slide back into third in another is a huge aha, because we tend to think that if we're going to become fifth dimensional, that when it happens, all of us are exactly. And what's really happening is we're fifth dimensional one moment, and then we slide back into third. And those fifth dimensional moments are those blissful moments, those places of joy, those places that when we're outside, and the whole idea is to bring that energy in to maintain that in the body, as Christina has said. And what I see is so important, and a way to prove it to yourself. Many people have this experience where they take something that they value, whether it's their car keys or their glasses or some other thing that they normally use frequently, and they set it down. And they come in the house and they set it down someplace. Maybe it's not its typical place, but then they go back to get it and it's not there. And they think to themselves, but I just put it there. It's not like I'm tired. It's not like I, came in smashed last night and I don't know where it is. I just put it there. And what I have found is that's a fifth dimensional moment, because in that moment when they set it down, they were in this comfortable, sweet, connected place. And now they've slipped back into their more mundane place of how do I solve this problem, blah, 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 how do I do this? And they're in that 3D place. So now when they go back to look for the keys, they're not there. 2 days later, when they're in that same spot, there's the keys, and they think, but I looked through this drawer, I turned it inside out. So one of the proofs that all of our listeners can have is if that's happened to you, where you've set something down, it's disappeared, and then later it turns up exactly where you put it, that's proof positive that you are moving dimensionally from third to fifth and back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And back to the bridge of what you were saying, I think that it's okay. And people just hearing this, as you're hearing it, it's eclipsing your ears. That's proof that you are moving into fifth dimension, is that you're seeking out opportunities to hear this kind of wisdom, which is not new, it's old, it's a reminder. It's helping us, all of us. So if you're hearing this, share it. Share it with your children, with whoever will listen, because that is also proof that you're ready. If you're not listening to this right now, then you wouldn't be in that place, So it starts with small things, and I do believe that it's an oscillating process. Eckhart Tolle points to this as well. You're going to be in the now, and then you're going to fall out of that. You're going to come back, you're going to fall out of it. So that happens, that transitory state happens, and as it does, just be very gentle with yourself too, knowing that it's a process that takes time, it evolves, we're all evolving towards that. There's some definitive things, though, I think we've talked about before, Sarah, definitive things that help accelerate this. You were talking about we're going over the bridge, we're seeking the how. People want to really transform themselves and linger and elongate themselves being fifth dimensional beings. I find, again, coming back to this talk about what we're consuming, what we're around, take a look at your environment that you're in. Maureen, you were mentioning the city that you're in, which I just think it's beautiful when we intend and when we co-create with our higher self where we're going to be at. Are you living in the region of the world where you would desire to be living? Is that really, the environment and the influences that you're around? That's also something else. As you're shifting into your fifth dimensional self, that's going to come up for you. Not only what you consume, but also how you move your body. So looking at the body, are you enjoying the movements that you're doing? And could you be enjoying them more? Is there something like, I have a client who really enjoys hula hooping. And it's the hula hoop motion, and this is what she does for her movement of the body. She channels now when she does that. So if you find yourself doing running or activities that you're not really enjoying, or you're in the gym, you're around a lot of electronics, and you feel yourself kind of getting heavy, or you're not really focused on the body, try a different activity.
Yeah.
Be willing to be flexible and pliable through this process of learning. As you're crossing over the bridge, it's many different components of it that are going to help you get there.
It must be true to you. That's the important thing is, your connection to your higher self, your wonderful personal guru, you're meant to live in harmony with yourself, and that is going to fluctuate according to what you're doing, what your purpose is, etc. But it's always coming back to that inner balance, that inner peace, that place where you just feel the breath, where you feel safe. And it's, your friend may go and do this. Well, why can't you do this? It's wonderful for me. Let's go and climb a mountain. And your body goes, I don't even need to talk to my higher self to know that I can't climb a mountain. It's go and find what it is that you love to do, because when you love to do it, whether it's a stroll, whether it's a jog, whether it's a climbing a mountain, but it feeds not only your body, it feeds your soul, it feeds your spirit. You have now made a connection. It's like fueling your gas tank up, and you've come home full. Everything about you now is in sync. Everything about you is in harmony. It feels open and ready to receive. But this journey of crossing over into embracing this new dimension, the dimension that's always been there but new to us as human beings, is the fact that it must bring about that inner tranquility, peace and purpose within you. It's not like, so-and-so's doing it this way, so therefore I must do it that way. No, everybody's got to do it their own way. That whole thing is connectiveness between your higher self, your physical self, your whole self. It must be connected, and you must find that connection within yourself. And what you've shared here today are some wonderful techniques and tools in order to do that. Maureen, you coming from a corporate side of it, so a lot of your instruction is very much kind of a corporate base, which can make a great deal of sense on the practical side of application. Christina, you come from a side of very much the flow and the spirit, of allowing that spirit and everything to come in and envelop you. Neither one is wrong. Harmony together, they make perfect partnership. And that's the beauty of it. It's be seekers. Look, explore, embrace, feel. Don't think, feel. I feel my knowledge. My knowledge has to be felt before I understand it. Some of us may be thinkers, but don't think from the human side of it. Think from your higher self of it. It's being in tune with yourself and honoring yourself to take that journey. Maureen?
I'm smiling because as you were saying, feel what you need, I'm thinking, can I feel my lunch? And I'm being and the answer is no, I definitely want to eat that lunch. And I'm also reminded, this business of going back and forth between third and fifth and what the heck is fourth reminds me of an experience when I was a young mother, and one of my sons was always in trouble. He was just the one that was always in trouble. And one day I was telling my mother how he had done something that was really mature, and I was so excited. He's finally, stepped up. And my mother said to me, well, honey, just remember, children don't grow up in a straight line. Yeah. And I was shocked. Oh. And I said to her, what does that mean? I was like horrified. What could that possibly mean? And she said, well, just remember that when they do something mature, they'll probably follow it with something really stupid. And so now we get it. that it's normal to slide back.
Yes.
That's normal.
Yeah.
Not only is it normal, Maureen, yes, it's accepted. It's acceptable. We celebrate these milestones with our children.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Why can't we do that celebration with ourselves as adults?
That's exactly right. We celebrate it in our children.
Yes.
And we dismiss it in ourselves, and you're absolutely right. Let us allow ourselves to be children.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God, yes. That is so important. I mean, when you're around children, when you're around puppies and kittens, when you're around that beautiful innocence that is so pure, they're in such divine essence at that time. And then as they grow, we kind of put them in that straight line and we tell them everything they can and they cannot do, and they lose that connection. And, it's like if we tap into those kids, we're the ones that are going to benefit from us. They're going to bring us back to our childhood. They're going to bring us back to our inner child. They're going to bring us back to that beautiful innocence of that just being in the now, in the wonder of the moment. And we can learn so much from children, from nature, from puppies and kittens and all those beautiful things. And we really should tap into it a great deal more.
There is an idea for another show, Sarah,
yes.
I have to say too. From my own motherly experience, so my son is now 7, and I could say unequivocally, hands down, is the Zen master in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So just being around him and his peers is that pure light energy, and you can see it through the eyes, and they'll zigzag. They do zigzags in their energy, and they're moving in and out of this. They're creatively playing. I mean, they're building amazing, phenomenal pictures with their imagination. Their intuition and their inner faculties are in high gear. Spend more time in this type of energy, and it's going to peel off onto you. So if you're feeling a little stagnant, that's a great way. Kittens, puppies, butterflies. I know it sounds kind of corny, but it's like, do it.
All right,
it
works. You can't help but smile. Your heart can't help but glow.
I'm smiling myself, Sarah. Knowing you and knowing that your son chose you, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, just wait till he's a teenager, and you're going to be the person that has to be the bumper cars, so that he has this wide swath, but he can't go on either side of it, because if you don't try to tell him what to do, by the time he's 12 or 13, he already knows. Mm-hmm. And that business of being parent is going to literally be turned inside out. Even that in 5D is different than it is in 3D.
Yes. Yeah. I have to agree with you, Maureen. And in 5D, our new world that's being developed, look at our children, indigo child. It just brings a whole new definition to that. And just the children of this world, and so nurturing. And I think, Sarah, a bit of my history, but talk about school of hard knocks as a child, not being able to have these gifts fostered in a way that's healthy, or even normalized. So please, parents, invite your children to be themselves, to play and dance and create, and allow their psychic energy to really come out to the forefront and be okay with it, because that's where we're headed. That's the future. That's
I love it's normalized.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny enough, actually, the show before this one, with Alison Ellsbury and Duarte Bassido, they're both talking to the spirit of our children and how an education to bring it alive. And it's both of them are doing their own teachings on how to tap into that with the children and have them, as they grow, to keep it a part of them and not lose it, because we did, and as you said, because we weren't nurtured. I could really only totally open my spirituality in my 50s. It was still something that, la la land, she's up in the clouds, she doesn't know reality. And it's, it was obviously a hard one, because you're always feeling disconnected. That, people don't really know who you, because they're not on that plane yet. Then we had that shift in 2012, and everybody started realizing there was a bridge there, and, started stepping out onto it, and suddenly, I may not completely understand, but I get it. And I think that's where people are right now. I get it. There's something more than just this matter. And, they're hungry for it, they're thirsty for it, they just, I want it. But of course then you've got the people that are out there that are selling kind of spirituality one-on-one, like supermarket spirituality, I call it. It's like, the fake nutritionals. And it's all again a facade, and it's not going deep. You've really got to be willing to go through your layers, do the work, take the time to get to know you, and then along the way there's going to be an awful lot you're going to have to forgive of what actions you've done along the way, because you only knew what you knew at that time. Now you know better, you know that action didn't serve you, but don't beat yourself up about it. Acknowledge it and move on. So for the older generation, it's a little harder, this crossing, isn't it? Because of that, past that they're still wearing and carrying along with them.
Yes, Sarah, I'm sorry. I have to say, I'm getting an old rugged backpack, image. And if you're feeling hardened, older generations, I hesitate to even use that word or that phrase, because we're ever young. We're always evolving, and the soul is eternal. So don't think of it that way, but if you do have that old rugged backpack on your back, you're crossing the bridge, you're feeling hardened, maybe your body physically even is hardened, use your imagination, use your visualization exercises to see yourself taking that off. Yeah. And literally, you can even throughout your day feel like or maybe butterfly wings or whatever it's going to take for you to feel a little bit lighter, and then go out and do some movements of the body. I think swimming is something I recommend to people. It's just
the conduit of the water is wonderful.
Feel that stuff breaking off of you, so you can you can really feel yourself a little softer, softening into this, because really what we're moving in is unconditional love. Yeah. And how that feels in the body. So letting all that other stuff go and taking the backpack off. And maybe it takes the flow of tears through the eyes. And that could be your process. Yeah. But I'm convinced we're on the journey no matter what. So this is your way. If you're in the flow of your process, you're doing it already.
Yeah. Know when to put the backpack down. Maureen, what do you have to say to that?
I want to go back to something that Christina said earlier, and remind people that food choices are very important, because right now much of our food and our water is engineered to hold us back.
Yes.
And once you know that, then it's far easier to make the decision, well, I'm not going to eat that because it's going to slow me down. So all these wonderful things that we want to do are predicated on our ability to break through those energies that are holding us back. And one of the ways that we are, quote, held back is by fluoridated water and food that has been processed a certain way, or not organic food. And all of these things keep us in what I will call the dumb down, so that trying to break through is very difficult. So when Christina reminds us how important diet is, and I agree with her wholeheartedly, it's not just a good idea. It's actually taking those shackles off that she has described, because you've made a choice that you're good enough that you can afford to eat well, and that you're so important that you'd rather spend a few extra pennies on organic food and take care of yourself and Mother Earth at the same time.
Christina and I did a show on that, actually, kind of vegan spirituality, where we did actually talk about the vibration of the foods that you're putting in helps you resonate at a higher vibration. Which,
I really think a lot of people just don't realize that everything in this reality right now is engineered to keep us from having our breakthrough. And it is an act of will, an act of choice, and also divine love that's coming through to help us. So the minute we decide we want to move in that direction right away, we've got grace, we've got helpers, we've got angels and guides that help us move to the next piece, whatever that is.
And they're not going away. They got their door opened a few years ago, which is like, we are now here, we're now going to connect with you, we're going to take you to that higher level, we're going to show you what you truly are here to do, and how divine you are as human beings, human beings. So it's, there is no stopping this now. There's no stopping this at all. It's just...
There's no falling back.
No.
No reverse.
No. The reverse gear is gone completely. Yeah.
I do have a question for Christina. Do you think, and of course I'm new to your work, so I apologize for that. Do you think that Athella is a higher version of you or another version of you that's, a time traveler or something?
I believe that, Athella has actually made it very clear. She said that she is a part of my life, though she's not my higher self. Okay. There's parts of her that have merged, and I think that serves a purpose. And for functionality purposes, I'm still, of course, in a physical meat suit over here. So it's helpful to have that connection. But she has likened her presence here with a building with 12 floors. So we've been operating on a lower level here, so moving from 3rd up to the 4th up to the 5th floor. You could see that as a building. Athella has said, I'm an ascended master. I'm here up on the top floor, on the 12th floor, and I can see things from here that you can't.
Right.
So as we connect, there's this fusion that happens. And that's okay. It's not permanent. It's here to provide healing and health and well-being for the human race. But I just want to say, too, it's very important, though, to make that distinction. I agree with you, Maureen, is higher self, our guides, and then ascended master. Some of the, I think that is in its own right should be a show. Yes. Because that has just many different implications and different feelings, different energy in the body, and as you're working with energy. So people who are new to this, I realize that could be confusing. So just thinking about the building, going back to the building. So we have the ability, all of us have the inner equipment to traverse these levels. And as Maureen pointed out, and Sarah, we've done a show on it, give yourself the best opportunity possible by really committing to a full-on lifestyle, a fifth dimensional lifestyle, as opposed to just on Sundays or, okay, today, I'm gonna do it. One other thing I'll point out too, and I've worked with people around the world who've done this, and it's amazing, is the idea of fasting, removing consumption altogether for a period of time. That can be a kickstart if you're interested in really kind of kickstarting yourself, jump-starting your body and purifying yourself, drinking a lot of water, and of course, the kind of water that you want to be drinking at this point. So purified water. By the way, I'll just say my brain has been unfettered in a lot of ways. I have not read a lot of books on this material. This is coming from Athella. So she has said, the water here, it's poisoned. There's a lot of toxins to it, and there's ways that you can clean it up, purify it, and then drink it. And then go ahead and write your affirmations on a piece of paper, tape it to your water, and drink that.
Yes.
And so the messages that can be put into our body, because of course our bodies are predominantly water, and we can ingest those as well. I believe that all of this, even though it's a flood of information, right? But we only have a limited amount of time, and on these shows, I think it's our duty, it's our obligation to really share as much as possible and let people know this is where we're headed. Yeah. And gosh, it's a wonderful thing. You can start with a fast. You can start with just the decision to stop eating and consuming meat. And adopt a vegan lifestyle. There's that word again, vegan. You'll become lighter. That's the best way to say it. Athella says it all the time. You'll become like the sun. And the foods that you'll ingest, at that point, you're eating plant, organic material. Your body transforms. Then you're very pliable. It's easy for you then, almost natural to flow into fifth dimension and to sustain yourself there. You're living in a different way. You're living a high vibrational way. So,
and also the foods and the plant foods, etc., of all those different colors. Every single one of those colors is resonating on a different frequency. And the more you ingest those things, the more they're actually feeding your chakras and feeding your presence. So that was another show I did with someone else. On the foods and the vibrations that they have there. And that's the thing, it's the reason why I do these shows and bring on such wonderful people like you guys, is that the information is here. And yes, when you first listen to it, it's like, oh my God, so much. Well, listen to it again. Take some notes. What stood out to you? What made you feel, that is doable. I'm going to start with that. It's not for you to go out and rush out and do everything we've said here today. It's for you to just know, okay, that 6-week program of, that Maureen has, of simply kind of reprogramming the brain into connecting and finding, where do I plug into my higher self? And finding that connection, learning to understand and identify what is the true connection to you. I would say, first and foremost, that is kind of step one. Find that higher self within you. Learn its dialogue. Learn to find that trust and that connection when you know it's true. And I think that will be the step one on that. Would you agree, Maureen?
Absolutely. And anyone who is listening to the show, if they will send me an email, info@Maureen St Germain, I will send them the protocol as a gift.
Wonderful.
I'd love to chime in, Sarah, as well. And a free product here that you can quite literally jump on is the Rainbow Trolley series. It's a fun series of 7 meditations and a journal. You ride with Athella, and it's a daily practice. It's a way that you can come to your inner self and heighten your meditations if you're already meditating. It's a great way to accelerate that and to get the repetition, because we do need repetition as humans. We need to do it again and again and again. The Rainbow Trolley series is free. It's on Athella.org. You download it. You can download it to your phone. You can do it I have people who do it while they're at work, and it's very deeply relaxing. But it's a way that you can begin to manifest and move into that 5th dimensional self in a very easy, simple way, and also document it. Writing down your findings in a journal is a playful, fun way to discover yourself and to see, okay, I started from this point and now here I am. Yeah. So that's a wonderful toolkit, and
I
everyone
see the two of them together. Yeah. Being a wonderful combination, because you've got the one that's kind of helping you kind of get into that meditative state where you are now more in tuned into kind of inviting your higher self and getting to know who it is and being actually more understanding of, is this the ego? Or is this, as you said, the darker voice channeling coming in? Or is this truly my higher self, and how do I get to know you and get that signature that I can trust? So I guess it is a great combination for anybody. So I invite both of people to look it out. So Maureen, would you please give your site again so people know where to get hold of you?
It's www.maureenstgermain.com, MaureenStGermain.com.
Excellent. And you'll see here on the posting the other shows that she's done with us, or you can just put her name in on the search engine and it will come up. I highly recommend that you do listen to it. So much wisdom was imparted there as well. Christina, this is our 3rd show. So would you, again, right here on the posting, you can just put Christina Hill on the side and you'll see all of her shows come up. But would you also let people know how they can get hold of you too?
Absolutely, Sarah. It's www.athella.org. So it's ATHELLA.org. And Athella, she hosts retreats, we have online courses, and we do live events, and some of them are even free. Maureen was talking earlier about being guided through her higher self, her guides to move geographically. Athella has actually just launched a tour. So we're beginning a tour, a world tour, and we'll be doing live events all over the world. And the retreats that she offers, it's also a great way to sit with one's guides, to bridge the gap, to spend an extended period of time with yourself in this 5th dimension and have some help, some coaching. So everything you want to know there is on Athella.org, and there's so many free products there, meditations and things that you can do in day-to-day life to just be the reminder to just raise your vibration. And I think by listening to this again, listen to it again and again, it becomes actually it's soaked into your cells is what happens.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes very much part of your cellular structure, most certainly.
Exactly. Yes.
When we talked about, going back, from the 5th, or the 4th down to the 3rd, you get to a point where you no longer have to go back to the 3rd. Your vibration, your resonance has risen so much that you might, I'm the gatekeeper at the 5th, as the people cross over the 4th. It's like, you're now entering the fifth dimension. What are you looking for? Self-Discovery Radio's got that person for you. There's the wisdom. So that meet and greet and point people in the right direction. But I'm very happy in myself that I no longer have to go back to that third dimension, that I've risen up above it, because I found the third dimension so riddled with pain and sorrow. And the faster we're willing to take this journey and immerse this higher level is one where we just don't have to go back to that pain anymore, that we resonate. And even though stupid things happen, like me falling flat on my face, stuff still happens, but the whole attitude around it becomes so very different. And that's the thing. It doesn't stop stuff happening to you in life, but it does give you the tools and the resonance of how to deal with it so much better and so much calmer. And whatever the reason is, it's always going to be presented as to what. So, and thank you both for being here today. This is absolutely awesome, wonderful wisdom from both of you. I love the diversity with the synergy, and as usual, beautiful, wonderful round table. So, closing words, Maureen?
One quick way to help you anchor into 5D is to say every day, I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth for me and everyone I come in contact with.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Christina?
I want to follow that up with anchoring yourself in 5D requires repetition. So take your affirmations, one or two affirmations, the ones that you're most fond of, or perhaps something you want to manifest, and tape it to your water glass, tape it to your toothbrush, see it with your eyes every day, and say it aloud. Sing it like a song. And really do that every day. I do that with my friends and family, and it works. It's also a reminder that this fifth dimensional stuff, it's here and now. It's really happening. So might as well grab your surfboard and ride the wave.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I got to add to that the list. What does the universe know what to give you unless you tell the universe what it is you desire? And so write your list. Make sure you shout it out loud. Let everybody know, because people want to help people. And when somebody knows that you're doing this in the right frequency, in the right resonance, that you need this help, people are there to help. As Maureen, most certainly, having one of her people listen to it, Judy Weiss, who became a contributor here to Self-Discovery Radio, which I am very honored with what she did and very humbled. And, that's the thing, is if we don't ask, how do people know how to serve us? And when you invite people to serve each other, that's when we're building on that orchestra, that symphony of resonance and harmony that then serves the whole. So I invite you to speak out, to invite, to inspire, to ask, and to step into, because when you do, you just resonate on a much more beautiful light that serves everyone. So thank you so much, Maureen. Thank you so much, Christina. Been an absolute pleasure. I know I'm going to have you back on again. Maybe another round table with some different people, but definitely having you back again. And I thank you so much for being here today.
You're the best. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you for playing and for manifesting, creating, co-creating today. Both of you, it's just an honor and my joy. Thank you.
My pleasure, and I know it will be all of your pleasures. Don't forget to share this show with your friends. Have a conversation about it. Be supportive with each other, because you're not meant to do this alone. We were never designed to do this alone. There's your higher self and the whole universe that wants to work with you. So until next time, folks, bye for now.